Welcome to the fourth video in my third chapter on how to create asteroids in GameMaker. And in this video, this is the conclusion of the third chapter, which is all about destroying asteroids. So in this video, what we're going to do is add some floating damage text numbers, and then also put in some sound effects for when the asteroids get destroyed. Since we've got sound effects for the weapons, we might want to get one for when the asteroids get hit or get destroyed. So let's start with the floating damage text. So for that, what we're going to want is, much like how we worked on the UI text, we will want to create another type of font for floating damage numbers. And because I do want it to have a slightly different font than what I've chosen up there. So what we're going to do is go to fonts, right click that, and create a new font. And this will be FNT underscore floating underscore damage. The size of this font, actually I'm pretty fine with it just being regular Arial. You can switch it out if you like to try a different font if you think another font would look good, but for now I'm just going to leave it as Arial. If you don't like it, feel free to change it. All right. Then we want to actually start creating the object for this damage text. So we're going to create that under objects. And I'm going to create a new object. And this object will be called obj underscore damage underscore text. It does not have a sprite because it's basically just going to be text. So let's add some instance variables so that we're able to set the text as this thing begins to exist. So the first one we're going to add is the actual one called damage text. I was going to call it damage or text, but I believe there might already be a text variable. So I'm going to try to avoid running into a built-in variable by calling this damage text. And the data type I want for that is a string, because I want it to be text. So I'm just going to do 0 with an exclamation mark, because that should indicate that it's not a number, because it's got an exclamation mark on it. Then we're going to add one that's called move speed. This is going to be how fast it floats up. So this will be 1.5. We're going to add another one called exist duration, which I think you probably know what exist duration is going to do. And we're going to set that to 60. That will be an integer, although because it's a per frame thing. We're going to add another one called alpha, which is going to represent the transparency level that we're at, which will be 1.0 right now. And then lastly, a variable called draw underscore color. And this is going to be the color that will be assigned to this text. So I just picked generic white. So let's add an event for the draw step. And it's just regular draw. And this is going to actually render the text. So this is going to draw the text. And we want to set the font first. So we'll say draw underscore set font to FNT underscore floating damage. Draw underscore H align. So draw set H align, which will be FA middle, I believe. Oops, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be center. This is the horizontal alignment of the text so that the text kind of gets centered on where we spawn it at. And then we will actually render the text. Now, this is not the prettiest text draw method, so it'll say draw underscore text color. And this is just another way to draw text with a specific color. And unfortunately, so the X and Y is where we're going to draw it at. The string is what we want to actually draw, and that's going to be this damage text variable. Now, unfortunately, we have a couple parameters we need to use. You can see that there's actually 4 color parameters. And if you look up this method, it actually has to do with like which corner everything is. And then there's finally the alpha channel. So this is a little horrendous. It's going to say draw color 4 times. So there's our first one, here's our second one, here's our third one, and here's our fourth one, and then the final variable is going to be alpha. So it's XY damage text, 4 copies of draw color, draw color, draw color, and then 1 alpha. And that will draw this to the screen. Then inside of the step event, we want to actually start making this text either change its alpha or start moving. So we're going to go add event, step, and inside of here, we're going to move text, adjust alpha, and check for deletion. So the first thing is y minus equals move speed. So basically that's going to make the text float. And it goes basically 1 pixel per frame. So it's 1.5 pixels per frame, so it'll be pretty slow. Then exist duration will minus equal 1, so we'll take away 1 frame from how long it's allowed to exist. Then we want it to fade out when it's close to being done. So what I'll do is if exist duration is less than or equal to 15, then I'll actually adjust the alpha. I'll say alpha equals exist duration divided by 15. So in that last like 1/4 of a second, it'll fade out kind of very gradually. And then if exist duration is less than or equal to 0, instance underscore destroy. So and then over here for exist duration, once 15 frames are left, start fading it out. So now all we've got to do is basically spawn this and make sure that it works. So the spawning is going to be done whenever the asteroids were taking damage. And so that's going to happen over in the parent object of the asteroid. If you recall, we left a space here where we can add code, where we were going to spawn the damage text. So here, what we'll want to do is, and actually, I do want to create a layer for the damage text. So I'm going to go over to the room, and I'm going to add a new layer here, and I'm going to rename this layer to damage underscore text. You can't have spaces, so if you tried to do that, it would not let you. So you actually have to use underscores. The downside to this approach is we would have to make sure every future room that's going to have damage text has this layer. Otherwise, we'll try to spawn on a layer that doesn't exist. But so we just create a layer for instances called damage text. And just be careful not to add asteroids or things to that layer. So when we go back to here, when we want to spawn the damage text, we'll say var dmg underscore text equals instance create layer other.x comma other.y minus 5, because that'll move it up 5 pixels of where the laser impacted at, comma, damage text. So that will spawn it on the layer that I just created. And we want to spawn an object damage text. So now if we do this, we haven't actually assigned the values, but it should load that default 0 and have white text to it. So you can see that it is correctly at least creating that damage text. So let's actually get it to say the text that we want. So damage underscore text dot damage text, that's our variable for what it's actually going to render. We do have to cast this to a string, because if I try to do other dot damage, while it may look like it'll work here, it is highly likely to have a data type mismatch, because this is a int or a real, and this is a string. So if we tried to do it this way, we're probably going to crash. Oh no, it worked. But I think for the sake of data protection, let's at least cast it to a string. And then let's grab the color from that laser as well. Damage text.drawColor is going to be set to other.effectColor. So based on what effect color we wanted, the damage text will adjust accordingly. Now, if you wanted to be fancy and maybe you have damage types in your game, like there's physical damage and energy damage, maybe physical damage is red, energy damage is blue, maybe you have some kind of consistent system. But I'm just going to make the damage text whatever color the laser was. And so now we're getting our little damage numbers, and you can see they fade out as they go up. And they match the color of what weapon spawned them. So you could get a little bit fancier too and add in like a horizontal jitter to the damage text as it appears, so that maybe the numbers don't always like stack so closely like these 4s do. But this is a pretty basic setup for damage text. Okay, so that's damage text. Now let's actually put some sound effects in for when the asteroids get hit, and then we'll be pretty happy with where we're at. So under sounds, let's make a new folder, a new group called Asteroids, because these are going to be some sound effects pertaining to the asteroids. So I'm going to create a new sound. This will be SND, and I'm going to make 2 different hit sound effects. I'll make hit deep, and let's go pick a sound for that. That is going to be rock hit. And that's going to be, well, I know it's not very deep, but maybe. So that'll be our sound effect. We're going to create another one called SND hit high. This is a higher pitched one, and that's rock hit high. And then we will create another one called SND underscore asteroid explode. And we'll do explosion asteroid for that effect, which is a pretty good one. And if we wanted to load some for the other ones, we'll set this up so the small asteroid and the big asteroids could have different sound effects. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to jump back over to asteroid parent, and then kind of set this up in a very similar way to what we did down here with referencing the small asteroids. We're going to go to add, and I'm going to call this SFX underscore hit. So this will be the hit effect. This will be an asset. And I will pick a default one. So I want the deeper one. And then I'm going to add another one, sfx_destroy, or maybe explode. And we'll do an asset for that. And we will pick wherever my sounds went, asteroid explode. So let's go call these, and we're going to call the variable instead of the actual sound effect so that the small asteroid could have a different set of sound effects than the big asteroid. So whenever we're hit by a projectile, right when we get hit by this projectile, we'll play the sound effect. So that's play audio. Actually, I don't remember what that is. I never remember what that one's called. That is... play underscore audio underscore play sound. And so the sound that we want is SFX hit, priority 1, does not loop. And so then this will kind of change if we reassign that value. And then if we go to when we're destroyed under end step, right before we delete the asteroid, play explosion sound. And then so that will be audio underscore play sound SFX explode 1, false. Oops. I just clicked and dragged something I probably shouldn't have. Okay, looks like that's spelled correctly. So just make sure it's spelled right. And now when I hit play, I should get different sound effects for each asteroid. Now I might want to change some of them out so that I have different sound effects. So maybe asteroid small, I want to replace the hit effect with a higher pitched one. So then here I will just swap that out with the sound hit high, and that will have a different sound. And so now I have different sound effects for each asteroid whenever they get hit by things. And so that's going to wrap up my asteroids settings. So the only thing left for us to do is to actually implement like a live system, some kind of score system, and a level and wave system. And then once we've got that working, we will have a largely finished asteroids project. So we're going to stop here. And we'll pick it up with what I will call Chapter 4 in the next video. So thank you for watching, and I hope you've had fun making asteroids. Oh, I just exploded.